comes out, when the truth comes out, you can run, but you know it's ending. At the bottom of the grave, you're digging out.
All right, so with all the news going on now with Fauci lying about everything, right, including forced masking of our kids, I want to show you this old interview I did with Newsmax from like 4 years ago. And it was about my son in Downers Grove South High School. He was punished because he got a little bit of dad in him, and he led the charge of going to school without masks. And so now that we have Fauci, he's bragging about school closings. They find these old clips and text messages and stuff, right? His lies altered our children's childhood in school. My kids were ingoing freshmen when this first started. And it was a mission that the masks were publicly motivated, forced masking on our kids. So I was pissed off back then. And I made a mockery of them. I bought these masks from this company that were like mesh. You could see your face. I sent my daughter, she follows the rules like mom. My son is more like me. And teachers got pissed off. And the second week, said, Mr. Newsom, you can't come to school anymore if we could see your lips through that mask. You got to get a different mask. So I put a double one on. You still could, it was not the same as wearing a full mask. I would wear hillbilly masks. I was insulting. I'd show up to school board meetings with hillbilly masks on. I'd wear a t-shirt that sat right in front of this arrogant Marxist superintendent, said, fuck your mask. One of the school board meetings, I walked around right in front of their live camera where they film it, and I'm standing with the FU, fuck your mask t-shirt, and I'm looking right in the camera, and I'm looking around, they're filming. You know what's ironic is this is before I became an two-time elected committeeman, is the Republicans in this Downers Grove area were upset with me wearing that t-shirt. They were upset. One guy had the nerve to come up to me, I didn't even know, and say, I appreciate it if you don't wear that shirt next time. It was like kind of like, fuck you. He goes, it's offensive. I go, it's offensive. They're giving us kids strap-on blowjob books. Don't tell me about offensive. Of course, I didn't listen to them. And, to this day, I don't listen to the Republicans. They're a bunch of irrelevant nothings. So all kinds of goofy, funny masks. I make fun of them all the time. So my son had the opportunity to lead the charge on going to school without masks. And the school board hates me. So my son shows up, and what do they do to my son? Because he didn't wear a mask. And this is right when the state of Illinois was going to be told they couldn't force us anymore. But this is before it was fully implemented, right? They made an example of my kid. They put him in a fishbowl glass room. The walls all glass, so when the kids come into the cafeteria, they can see him sitting there, right? My kid don't care. He's goofing around, but they punished him. They segregated him by himself. And then the other kids that were doing the same thing as him that were revolting against masks, they put him in a different room somewhere else. And they had my son sit the whole day so everybody can see him. They put him on display. And so I was on Newsmax about that. And I sent them photos of my son. One of the photos you'll see, he's looking down like he's all sad and depressed, right? He was actually playing on his phone. And so I didn't send him the photo where my cocky young son was doing a double bicep into one of the kids took a picture. And I didn't expect them to show that photo during my Newsmax interview because I was telling my poor son, he's humiliated. Wait till you see these pictures. And right in the middle of my interview, he throws up the double bicep. I'm like, oh my God, how am I going to say my son's all upset when he's being cocky little Italian kid, right? So the interview is pretty cool. The guy interviewing me from Newsmax, I had him my kid wear a Let's Go Brandon t-shirt on purpose, right? Because it was kind of back then, if you remember, it was kind of like F-U Brandon, right? And so I forgot the name of the host on Newsmax said, well, is that maybe why they're punishing your kid? I'm like, no, I told him to wear that t-shirt. So here's the Newsmax clip. Hope you enjoy it. And fuck those guys forcing masks on our kids, and Fauci and all those scumbags that hurt our kids. We were all right. We were correct. All of us parents that fought back were right. And look what's happening now. And nothing's happened to these scumbags.
Welcome back to American Agenda. An Illinois father is speaking out after his son was suspended from school for not wearing a mask. Maybe that was it. The 15-year-old boy was told by school members that he in fact had to wear a mask and was then taken into a room within the school where he was instructed to wait. Joining us now to tell us more about what happened is the boy's father, Terry Newsom. Terry, thank you so much for joining us. Tell us what happened then.
Hi, Bob. Thank you very much. Yeah, so I think everyone probably heard what went on in Illinois on Friday. A judge ruled that Pritzker's order is illegal. It's called a TRO suit, and within that, there were 700 students of 1 million in Illinois that signed up for the suit. What the judge ruled was that what Pritzker is doing is illegal. But in the meantime, it wasn't considered a class action lawsuit yet, and that's open for debate in the future. So basically, the parents are, like everyone else in the country, were very, very frustrated, right? It's been such a tragic for the kids. So we are sending our kids to school. Lots of them in our area are sending their kids to school without masks. So my son Anthony went without a mask, and then he was taken by the dean. He's going to kill me for that photo. So my son's on the wrestling team and football, and they locked him up in like a fishbowl room right by the cafeteria. Some of the wrestlers went by and took that picture of him. So anyway, they locked him in there because they said it's not in effect for everyone, and that is in fact true. But from the ruling, from the judge here, our school likes to be very big in inclusivity, and so do the parents, right? So if this was ruled, the court finds the plaintiffs have protectable interests not to be subjected to any mandates by the governor. The defendants do not. The schools have the authority to require masking, close contact exclusion, vaccinations, and/or testing in schools unless it's voluntary.
Okay.
So if that is illegal for 2 children, a lot of these schools in Illinois are now moving to mask optional, right? With everything we've disclosed.
Yeah, but let me ask you about your son, just so we understand the story. Was he allowed to go back to school, or is he?
He's locked up right now. No, he's at school. He's in that same room. My understanding from the other kids is that he's the only one in that room right now, which is like right by the cafeteria where you can walk.
So is he able to see the classes? I'm not saying that's the way they should do it, but he's not able to even.
No, they got 70 kids in another. So more kids got confidence from my son yesterday. Another adjacent school from here in Hinsdale has 400 kids in the auditorium, locked in there all day, sitting there. My son
and they're not able to get on their computers to watch like they did at home, forced to do at home last year?
No, they have to do their own homework ad hoc, just sitting there, just sitting there.
And now, how much do you think it had to do with the T-shirt he's wearing?
Oh, no, we knew that was going to happen. I told him to wear that T-shirt. We knew that was going to happen.
You told him to wear the T-shirt. You're getting your son in trouble.
No, he was in trouble before that because of me. Our school.
Let me ask you this. Is he still allowed to wrestle for the school?
Well, they're in their last 2 weeks, and he's got an infection in his knee. Not an infection, I mean, something.
Like a staph infection. I know wrestling. Yeah.
But there's other boys that want to participate because they have sectionals coming up.
Okay.
And we got a threatening letter from the superintendent saying that there's consequences, and of course there's consequences, right? But the kids that are going to sectionals, they can't even take the chance, right? Because they don't, and that makes sense.
Right. I mean, everybody's making their decisions, and some people are compromising what they might believe. Say, well, I consider wrestling more important than not wearing a mask. Let me ask you this: when they wrestle, which, by the way, is the most personal thing you can do athletically, in my opinion. I played football, basketball, baseball, but part of football, some of our training was wrestling. That is, you are right. Do they wear masks doing that?
So you're going to find this funny. I got boy-girl twins, right? My daughter finished volleyball, right? Open volleyball. Compared to wrestling, the poor girls had to wear masks in volleyball.
No, I know. My girls played volleyball, too, and they had to wear masks, which was preposterous. But just, do they have to wear masks wrestling?
So wrestling started right after football and volleyball. So I get an email from they're freshmen, so it's new to me, about wrestling practice. I said, hey, coach, I'm assuming they have to wear a mask. And he said, no, just to get to the wrestling room. So I go to the wrestling matches. Matter of fact, this last weekend, the kids have no masks on when they're wrestling. Oh. It just shows the inconsistency. I didn't want to complain about that because I didn't want them to go back and make these poor boys say, hey, my daughter has to wear a mask in volleyball.
Right.
But the wrestlers are sweating and dripping on each other. Don't. It doesn't make sense.
Exactly.
So it's like that's part of this whole thing. We're trying to teach the kids to stand up for themselves.
Right.
and typically you wouldn't want this to affect or educate. My kids are great students.
Yeah.
I'm like that, and you don't want them to impact.
Well,
Great point average.
by the way, this year my girls playing volleyball, they were allowed to not wear the mask at home, but then on away games they had to wear them. I don't know how that works, but a crazy world, Terry. I think everybody feels for you, and I hope this turns out better for you. I hope this mask craziness. Go ahead, last word.
I say one thing. So tomorrow night I'm hosting a pizza party with TPUSA for the kids to come together off-site because it's not sanctioned by the school, and to try to get them involved to have another view besides the radical left side view.
Yeah,
So
how do they get in touch? How do they get in touch?
Just look on Our Opinions Matter D99 Facebook page. Our Opinions Matter D99 Facebook. You'll see the posting and the address.
All right, Terry.
Thank you so much, Bob.
Hey, okay. Is it crazy? We'll talk about more about this in more detail with our next guest. We sorry about being late again. We were extra late this time. So we have a very interesting guest. He's from the West Coast. He's I believe a more articulate Christian version of me. And he follows a lot of the same stuff. So it's going to be a fun, interesting call. Let's invite Caleb in. Caleb Collier is a notable is associated with the Spokane Valley, Washington, as a U.S. Marine Corps veteran, former EMT, former Spokane Valley City Councilman, and the host of the Church and State podcast. He grew up in California as a Christian in a Christian commune, and his family later described a controlling cult-like. He served in the Marine Corps around the same time as 9/11, worked in telecommunications infrastructure support role. He worked as an EMT and later served in the Spokane City Council. Then he took a conservative libertarian position. I'm using AI, by the way, Caleb. I'm using AI. I know it's kind of gay. I'm using AI. He took a conservative libertarian position, including opposing certain government mandates and proposing that the city becomes Second Amendment sanctuary city. And he fights for all the same stuff that most of us are watching on the show. Welcome to the show.
Well, I appreciate that. And I got to say, AI did actually a pretty good job there. I'm not the biggest fan of AI. I don't typically use it when I can help it, but yeah, I mean that covered a lot of what I've done in my life. It's been a wild ride. I've never been afraid to try things. That included my time on the Spokane Valley City Council, everything I've done politically, as well as the show.
Yep. So thank you very much for being here. Why don't you, if there's anything you want to elaborate about your background or, why you're doing what you're doing with your podcast, just like us, I'm sure I know, but I like the people to hear why I think it's important for all of us to do this all over the country because somebody has to do it.
Yeah, we do. We got to speak up, and I'm so glad actually that we're covering this topic of Anthony Fauci, the mask mandates, the mandates on vaccines, experimental mRNA. It's not even fair to call them vaccines because we can't forget. And really, why I do what I do is because I hate bullies. I hated them when I was a kid. I hated bullies at the playground. I would stand up to them. And what I have found in my adult life is most of those bullies went into government because the government likes to tell us what to do. They like to dictate and edict and pass legislation. And for me, like I think it's our job to stand firmly and say no. Like I'm not gonna abide by that. During COVID-19, I kind of joke that I'm one of the few people that actually had fun during COVID-19 because I still did everything I was going to do. I
Mhm.
worked for political organizations, so there was no conservative political organizations or libertarian leaning. And they weren't like, hey, you're going to have to get vaccinated. So of course, I'm not going to get vaccinated. I refused to wear a mask out in the Spokane area, which is Eastern Washington. We had like a whole underground area. Like it was like speakeasies. You'd go knock on the door and, it'd slide open. Okay, you're cool. Come on in.
Right.
And we did massive protests against these lockdowns. And there was a whole slew of people that were just, we're done. We're not doing this.
Yeah.
And so that's why I think it's important for us to talk about this because I don't believe it's done. I think they're going to come back with something else.
That was a guinea pig test. I believe it. And we failed. I think we failed in general. Don't you think? I mean, I think we failed.
I think the vast majority of Americans did.
Yeah.
A country
Enough.
that was built on these principles of liberty, and the vast majority of us showed that we are sheep. There is a percentage, and that percentage is actually growing. There are a number of people who maybe got one of the vaccines, maybe got all the vaccines and all the boosters, but it finally woke them up. And I pray for those people. I pray that there's no side effects that come out in a few years, because a lot of people are experiencing those. But we
Mhm.
do need to raise that army, and we certainly don't want to be those individuals that are like, oh well, I never vaccinated, I never wore a mask, so if you ever did, you're dead to me. No, look, we need those people. We need those people who woke up to something, because all of us were in that position. For me, I didn't wake up until 9/11. I was serving in the Marine Corps, and I'm watching all this go down, and I'm like, something's not adding up. Like Tower 7, I had questions. Like, how does this thing go down? Didn't even get hit by a plane. So that was my wake up moment. And prior to that, I probably frustrated people that were already awake.
Yeah, yeah, with the vaccine, I had stage 4 prostate cancer 13 years ago, then I got, melanoma 5 years ago. I was in the middle of immunotherapy at the University of Chicago, right? Politically strong back then, right? So they got whatever they wanted, and I could have been one of the first in the country to go on the vax of because of a, oncology patient, and my oncologist tried to basically shame me in taking the vax, and I almost took it. I'd have to go every 3 weeks to get my immunotherapy for a year, and I can't tell you how many times in my head I'm driving there and I was gonna take it. You know what I mean? Because he's like shamed me into it, and I didn't wanna take it, and it was just common sense about the mask, right? That's why I put that with all those masks on. If you remember, I used to say, Fauci, no mask, 1 mask, 2 mask, 3 mask, sarcastically. And I remember the very first day I got immunotherapy, the hospital was shut down except for cancer patients. And my wife and I are driving down Stevenson Lakeshore Drive. Nobody. It looked like something from a movie. It was scary. It was like nobody in the city of Chicago. I mean, like the heart of Chicago. And then I get up to the 5th floor, the cancer floor, and like a lot of people had the oxygen and stuff. And I did not wear a mask because Fauci, I remember this vividly because I didn't wear a mask because he said not to wear a mask. I didn't know who he was, right? But I have all the construction masks and stuff. I could have put on, and I didn't wear it. I'm like, yeah, that guy said we shouldn't wear a mask. So I'm sitting there on the IV, and I grabbed my mouth, and I was scared because the first patient that died in Chicago was at University of Chicago that week from COVID. And so you're walking around the hallways, it's, like, creepy, it's scary, and nobody kn I was scared, I'm not, because I'm sitting there thinking, "Care, what if this stuff's floating around?" To my wife, or, "I just touched my mouth, what if I got a germ?" You know what I mean? Why did the guy tell us not to wear a mask to at least protect our mouths from putting our hands in there? From common sense. And then he goes to wearing a mask, then 2 masks, and then my oncologist, when they started getting it, the nurse took the, vax first, and, every 3 weeks, I said, "No, no," and he got mad, "Why aren't you doing this?" I said, "Listen," I go, "You guys weren't even, right with the I go, "All due respect with the masks." "What do you mean?" I go, "They said no mask, 1 mask, 2" "Well, science changes." And I said, "Science changes?" I go, "You guys know about masks for other diseases for so long and what could, penetrate those masks, regardless of COVID. So you should know that before saying no mask, 1 mask, 2 mask." And he's like, "You're the only cancer patient, the whole University of Chicago that didn't get a vax." Thank God I didn't get it. And my
Yeah,
prostate
you're
cancer
still
came back.
here.
Yeah, my prostate cancer came back coincidentally. I had a reoccurrence. So based on what we're learning now, right, Caleb, I could have been screwed, right? I'm hearing about all that turbo cancer and stuff. And thank God I was a hard-headed dago and I didn't take it.
Well, there's something to be said for hard-headed Dagos. I can say that because I'm also
Yeah,
Italian. I'm a quarter, even though my appearance doesn't look that way, and my name
yeah.
doesn't make you or lead you to believe that. But we got to remind people of the craziness. We got to remind people of how evil Dr. Anthony Fauci is. I love that you had the image of him in that glass box with the sand fleas all around him, because I like movies. I'm sure you guys like movies as well. When you're introduced to a bad guy, but you're not really sure if he's the bad guy, like one of the things that you want to look for is, does he mistreat animals? If you're watching the
Yeah,
movie and all of a sudden he kicks a puppy and you're like, oh, that's the bad guy, right? Okay, Anthony Fauci experimenting on beagle puppies using sand fleas, locking them in a cage with just their head there, dumping in a bunch of sand fleas while they eat the flesh off of them. I'm pretty sure that designates you as a bad guy.
yes. Yeah, no, yes, and he comes across presidential and like he's done it for so long. And I have people here in this state, well, he didn't make the laws, it was Pritzker and stuff. I go, but he influenced, he lied, he manipulated, he knew what he was doing. And no, he doesn't make the laws. And we know that. That's how you run the government and the presidency and governors and stuff, right? They take recommendations from the quote, the experts. But that expert was lying. Just like in business, you surround yourself by people that are supposed to help you because you don't know everything about everything, no matter what you do, right? You know as much as you can, and then you have experts. That's why you have all these executives in the pyramid of how they report up to you. This guy lied, and he knew he lied.
Yeah, and that's clearly evident. I mean, when we have him in front of the representatives, and they're asking him questions about things, and he just pleads the fifth over and over and over again. Well,
111 times.
yeah, and I mean, he's not stupid. Okay, a lot of people were out there saying, "Well, he's so stupid, his
No,
lawyer's stupid."
no, he's
No,
not.
he knows he has immunity at the federal level, but he
Yeah,
doesn't at the state level. And I really hope that one of these more conservative states goes after him and prosecutes him. And that's why I believe that's why he kept pleading the fifth, because he knows he's in trouble if he ever dares to utter a word of truth.
yeah. Caleb,
Yeah,
real quick, we'll pivot back to this discussion, but I'm a little frustrated that nobody's been indicted for nothing since we've been. I'm very upset with, and that's for another topic. But I mean, nobody's in trouble for everything they've done to us for the last 5 years, 6 years, 10 years.
oh,
Nobody.
and even with the other more recent stuff they've uncovered with all this fraud. Yeah, I'm glad they can deport some Somali pirates and a few other people, but we went the big fish. They talked about how they have direct links up to Tampon Tim's lieutenant governor, whatever her name is. I keep forgetting it. Well, arrest her then. Stop talking. Put up and shut up. Yesterday we were talking about this Ilhan Omar thing that gets brought up again. We've been talking about her marrying her brother, the fraud with the winery, the $30 million in assets, and all this stuff for a year and a half. Just go ahead and deport her. You know what? We don't have to break up families. We can send her husband with her, or both of them, her brother husband and the more recent husband. We'll send them all back to Somalia, and at least it's something. But yeah, Fauci, I'm glad Florida has some testicular fortitude and is probably going to prosecute Fauci, but they need to in Missouri and Ohio and Illinois and other places. I mean, it's not, this guy's already over 80 years old. We don't have to lock him up for that long to put him in jail for the rest of his life. So it can't be that difficult, guys. Get it together. And if we don't start arresting some of these deep staters, like John Brennan, they've literally teased this 9 times. Oh, guys, there's a grand jury. There's another grand jury down in Florida. We're going to get him. But I haven't seen any handcuffs. I haven't seen any major arrests. If that doesn't happen soon, we're going to get smoked in this midterm, because there are a lot of people that are just going to sit on their hands. They're frustrated with the Republicans. They're frustrated with Trump and the DOJ, and they're just not going to vote. They just don't care. And I think that's a much bigger problem than a lot of people want to admit right now.
I mean, I would agree with your assessment of the current political climate. I'm a Christian libertarian, so I'm not part of either political system, the parties, and I throw stones on my own show at everybody. Look, the system is completely corrupted, and it's not just Fauci, it's not just medical freedom. We're all angry about the Epstein files because we were promised that the individuals who were doing some of the most horrific things imaginable to these kids. I mean, some of the records are showing, not just molestation, not just rape, right, but also even as far as cannibalism in some of these documents that I've seen. So these are the sickest people out there, and Trump and his administration ran on, hey, we're going to release these Epstein files. I don't have short-term memory loss. I remember when they all came out and they're holding the Epstein files. We're going to get these to you. And all of a sudden, what Epstein files? We never saw those Epstein files. What are you talking about? Look, that's angering to the American public. It doesn't matter whether you're a Republican or a Democrat. Most people, maybe not some of the extreme Democrats, but most people want justice for these children. All right. And so, you're going to see something at the midterms, and I'm so tired of this is the most important election of our lifetime. We hear it.
I've heard that
all
before.
The talking heads. Yeah, I hear it every 2 years, right? We all do. And here's the thing. We want change, okay? It doesn't matter if you're a Republican or a Democrat. We want change. And people have been waking up to this for a long time. The same people who were all over the Ron Paul revolution, many of them flipped over and started supporting Bernie Sanders when he ran. Why was that? Why did a lot of those same Bernie Sanders people go and support Trump in 2016? Because we're looking for an outsider. We're looking for somebody that's not part of the political machine. And unfortunately, they either make it to where these people will never be elected, or a lot of these people end up being frauds.
Yeah, I am getting disappointed in Trump. I mean, like the first time I voted for him, people like, here in Illinois, it's probably the same by you, right? They hate him. I mean, like, I hate anybody that. The first time, the reason I voted for Trump was I voted for him because of who he wasn't. That's why I voted. Not who he
Yeah.
was, who he wasn't. That was why I voted for him. The second time I voted for him is for what he's done, over that period of time.
Yeah.
Now, the third time, I mean, I voted for him, the things he's done and stuff, but as now that he's there, it's like I'm upset, man. I was labeled a terrorist. I lost my job because of the Southern Poverty Law Center. All these guys, I didn't do nothing wrong, and nobody's been punished.
Yeah.
Nobody's been punished for any of this stuff. I was labeled a terrorist. I mean, but many other people, our lives were disrupted. I was lucky I didn't have to go to federal court. I was peacefully at January 6th. They sent the FBI to my house. I didn't even go in. I left before people went in. And all these
Wait,
people that had been for attorneys and I mean, and went to prison and lost their lives, their families. I mean, it's just awful.
well, I mean,
They've
think about
weaponized everything. Oh, go ahead,
yeah.
Michael.
Well, yeah, think about this real quick. And, think about all these FBI agents, people like Steve Friend, Garrett O'Boyle, Kyle Seraphin that came forward. Think about, the DHS targeter, Aaron Stevenson, and we've had him on this podcast before. He's the one, along with Tara Rodas, discovered these 380,000 missing kids at the border. Guess who doesn't work at DHS anymore? He's gone too. All these people that did their part and pushed the government to do the right thing, and now we're back in power, and they don't want to listen to any of them. We still have 6,000 FBI agents that need to be fired, at least. Now, I'll be generous there. I do think that some of them, if you went and kicked down a few doors right after January 6th, you might have thought you were just doing your job, that you were getting people that broke windows or did other things. But a few months in, there's no excuse. And if we don't change these people and pull them, if we don't eliminate the deep state, we just let them go in hiding for a few years, they can wait out the next 2 years because the Democrats are not going to win the Senate. Even if they win the House, Trump will just remain the reigning impeachment champion. They'll impeach him 9 more times. The record will expand from 2 impeachments to 15 or more, but it won't affect anything. They won't be able to drive their agenda through. And I think with the DSA candidates they're pushing now, it's a pretty good chance that we end up with Rubio or Vance in there for the next term because they're going to probably run AOC on some blue-haired moonbat we've never heard of that's a DSA favorite, and then they're going to get smoked. But will we change anything? Will we fix anything? That's the real problem. These are institutional problems. They are embedded within our system. And if we don't eliminate the guilty parties once and for all, then this is only going to continue. And I mean both the Epstein class and the deep state, the intelligence agencies, everybody. We have a chance right now to actually clean house and get our country on a much better trajectory. And I hate to break it to you guys, we got some bad things on the horizon between what's happening with AI, what's happening with our monetary system, world markets. There's a derivatives crash getting ready to happen. U.S. treasuries are... Yeah, that's not good either. Like we have our both feet on landmines right now, and there are not very many paths to safety. And if something doesn't change soon, it doesn't matter if we stave it off for a year or two. The beast will still come for its due.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's a good assessment of our current situation as Americans, and it should frighten every single one of your audience members because we're in a world of hurt. I like the analogy of both feet on a landmine. I mean, $40 trillion in debt.
Yeah.
We cannot survive as a country, and I don't care if it was Biden or Trump that brought us to that point. $40 trillion is not something that we can have hanging over our heads. We're
Right.
engaged in more wars again.
Yeah.
We just can't seem to stop that. I got out of the Marine Corps in 2002. We've been at war since. I mean, there's an entire generation that has not known America at war. And my kids are getting to the point where, in 4 years for my oldest, he could join the military. I tell him all the time, I'm a Marine veteran. I love this country. You're not serving in the military. I tell him that all the time. Like, I'm not going to have you go die in some banker's war. For what? To go spread democracy? I know I'm a conservative or a libertarian. I'm
Yeah.
not supposed to have trigger words, but we're not a democracy. I get so tired of that word, and they throw it around constantly. And we attack all these different countries for what? For what reason? Or I go back. I got my degree in history, so I like to study what happened in our past. And I go back and I bring this up all the time, and I want people to remember this. When General Wesley Clark ran for president as a Democrat. He said he named like 9 or 10 countries that we were going to invade in the future. And he
Yep.
named them. He named Libya. He named Syria. He named Iraq. He named Iran. Why have we gone into all those countries? Oh, I'll tell you one reason why. Because none of them had a World Bank. But guess what? They do now.
Yep.
Yeah, yeah. So you mentioned history. I made a post today. I was calling out. We have a gubernatorial candidate here, that Darren Bailey running against Pritzker, right?
Yeah.
And I hate Pritzker. People aren't happy that Bailey won for whatever reasons without getting into that. But I'm going to vote for him. I tell people that are Republicans, if you're a Republican, just you don't like him, you got to vote for him. Pritzker's so bad and evil, right? And then Bailey just goes to. I grew up in the Southwest Side, Bridgeville. Bridgeville is right adjacent to where I grew up. My high school, we all went to the same high school. They just changed the name to Little Pakistan, or I'm
The
sorry,
Palestine,
Little
same
Palestine,
difference.
yeah, Little Palestine. And this guy went and met with the Muslim there, and they're not here to simulate. They're not
No.
here. We just had Lieutenant Colonel Alan West on here, and people that know all this stuff all the time. These people are not here to simulate. They're not like the other immigrants, not like the Italians, or what I mean. They come here and try to simulate. And for him to go over there where they were vote 80% Democrat in that area, it's Little Palestine. There's only 400 Republican votes there, guys. 400. Why would you go and betray our motivation here in the state of Illinois is awful. The only chance we had to do anything positive in the election is if Trump was hitting on all cylinders and his approval rating was through the roof. That's not the case now. That means Republicans aren't going to come out to vote. And we have this guy running, and he's kissing ass of an imam, standing with his wife next to her, wrapped up in the
Trash bag.
yeah, and it's like, "Oh, yeah, we have so many things in common." Really? Like, we treat our women like animals? We wrap them up, they can I mean, eh, it's a betrayal, and for these politicians, for him to go for 400 votes, I mean, they're selling us out on both sides.
Yep.
Yeah, they are, and intentionally so. Carlos the Jackal, many will remember him as one of the more prolific terrorists back in the day. He said the West can only be conquered by an alliance of the red and green, the red-green axis. A lot of people
Yep.
talk about this, but that's what they're doing. And the communists in the United States, and don't get me on the DSA. Well, we're not communists; we're socialists. Just shut up, okay?
You're useful idiots.
Socialism is the exact same thing. They are. They're useful idiots. But the communists of the United States are not like the communists of the Soviet Union. Okay, these guys were tough. The communists in the United States, as you said, the blue haired wingbats, or I think is what you've described them as. These guys aren't tough.
No, they're
Half
not.
of them don't even know they're guys. They
Yeah,
can't figure that out.
right.
So the red axis is not going to be able to stand against the green axis. The
Yeah,
Muslims are
yes.
using the left, and once they gain control of areas like Dearborn, Michigan,
Yep.
then you'll actually get to see what they really stand for.
Yeah.
Yeah, and if these
You got
trust fund retards knew anything about history, all they'd have to do is look to Iran.
yeah,
The
Caleb, sorry. Go ahead.
yeah, sorry, I'll be quick. They banded together, the Islamists and the communists, and they overthrew the King Pahlavi. And what did they do next? They executed the 10,000 communists. They went through the colleges. They cleaned them all out. They're all dead. And that's what will happen here too. They'll use them. They're retards. I mean, these are a bunch of mentally ill trust fund kids that want to go play revolutionary. But the minute things start happening, they'll be the first ones they kill because they're the ones that know how to foment a revolution, and that's not useful to the Islamists.
When I made the statement to Caleb about history, and I forgot when I was finished talking about what happened with Darren Bailey, is I brought up history, and that's why I want to ask Caleb what his history background is. That look what's happening in Europe, real time now. Look what's happening in New York, just starting to happening because Madame, and look what's been happening in Dearborn. And Caleb, tell people what has happened over historical times with the Muslims in in Europe, right? In all these countries that are now Muslim, they weren't Muslim before. So why don't you give them a little education on history, if you don't mind?
Yeah, there's a book that I would point to. It's called The Sword and Scimitar. I recommend it
Yeah.
for the entire audience. It's phenomenal. It's a hard read though because it goes into what exactly these jihadists were doing to our European brothers and sisters, what they would do to the churches, and it was really wild because during this time period, the Protestants and the Catholics so hated each other that oftentimes they would band together with the Muslims as they were fighting each other. Talk about short-sighted on this one, but they invaded so much of Europe. And the thing about Islam that the audience needs to understand is if a country was ever controlled by Islam, they consider it still their land. And so when you see them like going into Spain, like what we just witnessed, right? They're not an invading army at that point. To in their mindset, they're just taking back their territory. So this is extremely troubling for Europe. I mean, England, London has been completely overrun. France
Hmm.
is in the same boat, but we've lost, or I should say, these Europeans have lost their national identity. There used to be a time when the British were proud to be British. There used to
Hmm.
be a time when the French were proud to be French. I don't really understand that one personally,
Yeah.
but they were proud of being French. And now, no, they've lost it to this idea, this lie of multiculturalism. And look, when we look at the United States, and we put our Constitution, which is a beautiful document, and I would include the Declaration and the Bill of Rights. They're just beautiful documents, in my opinion, inspired by the hand of God. And we compare that to Sharia law, they don't mix. They're oil and
No.
water. These Islamicists will tell you that, if they're being honest, that their adherence is to Sharia law, not to the Constitution. If we are going to actually have good and proper immigration, as you brought up with the Italian immigrants, the Irish, right? There was that assimilation. They wanted to be
Yep.
a part, they wanted to be American. My Italian grandparents, they refused to, or great grandparents, I should say, they refused to teach my grandma Italian because we're Americans now. We're
Same
gonna
with my
we're gonna
mom.
speak English here.
My grandparents didn't teach my mom and my aunts and uncles Italian, but then my grandma's, how we were all close together. So my little 5-foot grandma would come over and try to teach me Italian. I'm like, Grandma, I barely know English. I don't want to learn Italian. But they purposely, none of them, you pick up Italian, you grow up and stuff. But I mean, they purposely did exactly what you just said. They did not teach my mom and anyone Italian. And then she tried to teach us Italian, which is true. Now, these Muslims, they stay tight knit in their community. It's great. They have a little cultural association. But like where I grew up, they changed the town, the street, the politicians changed the street to Little Palestine Way, all the
They
way
named a
for
street after a terrorist.
yeah, for 40 blocks. And then me and Ben Berkwam, we went there the week they put the sign up, right? And that's where that's my neighborhood, right? And I walk Ben around there. And then after we posted the video, I'm getting threats from these Hamas scumbags. Terry Newsom, we know who you are. If there's any trouble here, we're coming for you. And a bunch of them say, then they pulled him down, and that that that's been there since like the late '60s. That mosque, they bought a Catholic church, but it really like in the last 30 years, I mean, it's massive now. Big home castles. With the average house is $290,000. They got castles around the mosque now.
Yeah, and this is why, I'd really love the opportunity to transition towards the church. I mean, obviously, with a name like Church and State, I
Yeah.
go after the church quite a bit because there's a lot of problems
Yep.
within our church, and one of those is that we are so feckless and feminine as a church body,
Yep.
and we are not being strong in our words. I mean, I don't care if I offend you. The
Hmm.
entire Bible is offensive, and I'm a follower of that Bible. So I'm going to offend you by telling you things like there's only one way to heaven. You can be a secularist, you can be an atheist, you can be an Islamicist, you can be a Hindu, and you know what? You're following a false religion, and atheism and secularism is a religion, but you're following a false religion. And I'm bold enough to tell you, Jesus Christ is the only way. And I'm nice enough also to tell you that Jesus Christ is the only way because there's compassion in that statement. Yes, it's a bold and maybe even controversial statement, but it's one that's designed with compassion because I don't want to see people burn in hell. Maybe that's just me, but there's a lot of other Christians that feel that way also. But we've got pastors that are preaching prosperity gospel and seeker sensitive. And I don't want to see, some 50-year-old man try to put himself in skinny jeans so that he can be cool and hip and trendy while the fog machine's going and he's sipping his coffee and telling me basically a TED Talks conversation with a little bit of scripture sprinkled in there. That's not Christianity. We need bold Christianity. That's really the only way to make America great again.
Agreed.
Yeah, you know what upsets me is, we talked, I was a Catholic, I am a Catholic, but I'm not a good Catholic. And I was so upset when I started this battle, never involving politics, right? When I went to the forced masking and then I found out about the gender queer and the porn. And I had these I had these here since I had you on too. So this is what kind of launched me nationally was I had these posters made up. Yes, you guys see those?
Yeah.
Ooh,
It's from gender queer.
yeah, I remember this book.
Yeah, and so I went to the Catholic churches all around my kid's school, being that I was a Catholic, thinking I was gonna get lots of help and stuff. None of them called me back, Caleb, the priests. I went in and nobody called me back. I was shocked. I mean, that's when I started getting upset. I'm like, "What the hell?" I said, "I need some help speaking out at the schools with our kids." None of them called me back. The women, I would leave it, they're like, "Oh my gosh," I go, "That's in our kids' schools here in Downers Grove, and all these Catholic churches are in the area." Not one took the time to call me back. And I said, my message was, "I need help fighting this."
And that should have been answered. That call should have been
Yeah.
answered by every single Christian, every single American, people who love liberty, people who love the Lord. Like that is a call to action. If you see that there is pornography being peddled in the school and they get upset, those same people who say this is so good for our kids, they get upset when you show up to a school board meeting with that exact same book and say, look at this. This is in your book. Put that away. Right. Or you could even get arrested for
Mhm.
showing pornography in a school board meeting, but they're putting it in front of our kids and nobody reacts. I mean, yes, there were a few, right? There were some good people out there reacting, but as a whole,
Yeah.
we
Yeah.
didn't react to that.
I couldn't get one father to hold those posters for me. I think I told you before the show, right? Not one to help me. We have our Senate minority leader, 6'8" jolly green giant. His daughter, my daughter, on the same volleyball team. I asked, he's a Republican. He's not really Republican. He's not. He's not.
Undocumented Democrat.
John Curran is a pussy. He's 6'8" pussy. And I said, could you, when I was getting pummeled in the Southern Poverty Law Center, all this attacking me, saying all this crazy stuff about me, could you at least say that porn doesn't belong in our daughter's school? And oh, Tara, if I get involved, it'll become political. It'll be
It's all right.
distraction. I was brand new to like right when I was going to run for to be my first time as a committeeman. I'm like, well, what do you mean? I go, it is political. They want porn and drag queens. We don't. I don't understand. Well, the guy was getting paid off by the teachers union. And so I hit him hard. I hit the Republicans got mad at me. I don't care who he is. If you don't defend your own daughter, your own child, and simply say something as simple as porn doesn't belong in the school if you're worried about the politics, he refused to even say that. So if you don't do that and defend your own child, you sure the hell aren't going to represent me and my children when our backs are turned if we needed your help. So you're a piece of crap. You don't even belong in that position.
You're
Well,
absolutely right. And I've already brought up movies once. Might as well do it again. Everybody likes to watch these movies, especially guys, right? We like these hero movies. We like to watch Braveheart and say, "Yeah, I'd be William Wallace, right? I'd be standing up to him." And then you get the opportunity to do so. And which character are you? You're not the main character. I'll tell you that right now. You're not the hero of the
Yeah.
story. You're selling out. It's like that movie They Live with Roddy Piper. The guy
yeah.
we have the opportunity to put the sunglasses on. We can see it, and the vast majority of people are going to fight you. I don't want to see the truth, or and in your case, right, with what you were dealing with, they're the ones that sold out. Hey, live good while the getting's good.
Well, yeah.
That's the mentality of so many of these politicians and leaders in our country.
Well, I mean, again, to take it back to what you said earlier about the churches, look at how many of these churches now celebrate Pride Month every year, or get mad when Target doesn't put, I don't remember, like the trans swimsuits and the dildos up front, and that's what they act like that's somehow a loss for them. Same with our schools. A lot of this, again, we talk about the roots of our problems. Our schools don't educate any people anymore. They're there to indoctrinate. They're there to just make you a mindless, brain numb sponge, a tool of the left that will go out there and express your feelings, but they're not based in reality. They're not based in morality. They're not based in anything that's actually useful to our society. But this is the message that gets pushed. And then when you have people like your representative there, Terry, that sell out to that, they knew who butters their bread, and they've abandoned the people they're there to represent. They don't care about them at all anymore. They're there to enrich themselves and to form an exit plan. They want to be well enough off that they don't have to worry about things when all this finally does go sideways.
You know, Michael, you just hit upon solutions, and I absolutely love that because we need to start practicing solutions. And there's so many ways to combat what's currently going on, and I don't care what it is. It's education, church, politics. There are ways for us to fight back. And so, when it comes to education, get your kids out of public school. I'm not
Yep.
stuttering there. I can say it again for people in the back if they didn't hear me. Get your kids out of public education. There are so many different options out there. There's homeschooling. If you don't feel like you're well educated enough to homeschool your kids, there's homeschool co-ops, there's private schools. Okay, there's a lot of different options for parents out there. But I'm telling you right now, the school that you went to, you're like, hey, it wasn't so bad when I went. It's not the same school.
Same.
They are
Yep.
pushing a propaganda machine you don't want your kids to be a part of. When it comes to the churches, right? I'm a Lutheran, okay? And the Lutheran Church, well, I should say the ELCA, they're nuts. They got the rainbow flags out there and everything. But there's good wings of Lutheranism. I'm LCMS myself. Look, if there's a church that you're a part of, or maybe you're going to visit and it has rainbow flags, I mean, there's your sign right there.
Mhm.
Actually, just looking at the data points, the top 3 churches that are closing their doors in America right now?
Catholic.
No, it is the Lutheran Church, the Methodist Church, and the Presbyterian Church. Those are the
All the
3 churches.
pride flag flying churches.
They're all closing. And people Christians were bemoaning this. This is terrible news. This points to the fact that America is starting to lose its Christian roots. Wrong. That's not the case. Those 3 churches are some of the worst churches for progressivism. And I
Yep.
see opportunity for us because a lot of these churches, especially they're more of the high church model, they're more that Orthodox style. They're beautiful buildings. We don't have to go and put a church in a strip mall anymore. Go buy a former Presbyterian church with the stained glass windows and the beautiful wood and pews and everything like that. It's going to be fantastic for America. So there's solutions. Once again, getting inside of a good church. When it comes to politics, look, it's got to be local, guys. I know that for lack of a better word, that the federal elections are sexier. Okay, I know it, right? All the news is
Yeah.
all over it. But you go into the local level and you can get good people. I mean, when I was a councilman, I fought against a vaccine mandate back in 2016, back before it was cool to do so. Well, I tried to make my city a Second Amendment sanctuary city because they were talking about banning uh, high capacity magazines and assault
You mean
rifles, right?
standard capacity magazines, right?
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. Right. Like the one behind me. Yeah,
Yeah.
they were trying to ban that. So at that local level, get somebody in there. Get somebody in there that'll fight. And then you know what? That's like sports. When you get in there and you got the junior varsity team, that's your
Yep.
local level, guys. They're gonna
Yeah.
move up. Start
Yep.
moving them up.
Yep.
And if they burn you, you burn them back.
That's right.
Yeah, here in Illinois, the GOP did nothing to help the school boards. Nothing. Absolute nothing. And matter of fact, all the way up and down, they have no money. They have nothing. And I when I first got into it as a committeeman, and I disrupt our township. I called them out and stuff, right? And so as I learned quickly, is that the Republican Party is supposed to bring the money and power, right, for us. And then we bring as grassroots the people and passion. And you're supposed to bring them together to make us strong to fight against the Democrats, especially in Illinois. It's got tons of money, tons of power. They've got crazy whack jobs that have passion. They're organized. They're unions. They got Indivisible, Act Blue. I'm on all the emails to follow these guys. We're not doing anything. And so the Illinois Republican Party has no power and zero money, none. But they help their little friends at the top to keep these little positions. They do nothing to help us. No strategy, nothing. The RNC thinks we're a joke. We're one of the worst states, the worst state in the probably the whole country, because our Republicans are Democrats in Illinois, and they betray us.
Sure. And once again, we can do something about that. My local GOP, is phenomenal, and we had to take it over, right? We as
Bingo.
conservatives, as constitutionalists, even as some libertarians, we had to go in there and take it back from the establishment, and it worked like a charm. And now I'm so proud of my local Spokane GOP. They're passing resolutions against geoengineering, right? And the establishment's like, whoa, this makes us look like we're Bigfoot people, and like, no, look up in the sky, they're doing it. Okay,
Yeah.
they're doing it, and you can see it. So yeah, we can be effective. We can take control. There's a book I would recommend for the entire audience, a book called Confrontational Politics. It is literally the best book out there for conservatives, anybody who loves liberty, to take the power back. It's basically rules for radicals for conservatives. Okay.
Mhm.
And it is a phenomenal book. Read it, highlight it, share it with friends, family, and neighbors.
Yeah, I'll definitely get it. I get Audible because I'm Mr. ADD. I'm like my legs are going now and stuff. Like I got that book that you told me on Audible. The it's 9 hours. It's like right. I listened to it on Audible. It's like I listen a little bit at a time before I start like twitching and stuff. But it's a good book. It is a good book, and people have to listen to it. You know what's funny about here in Illinois? I don't know if that happens by you, but our Republicans here suck. Right? They're Democrats, and they do things, i.e., like go and kiss the feet of Muslims and wash their feet and, all this crazy crap that they're doing, right? And I'm like, you got to give us excitement. You know what? They're worried about like, same day voting, vote by mail. I say, you got to give these people excitement, to motivation just to vote. Doesn't matter about the channel. Yes, there's cheating. We need to stop it. But in Illinois, it doesn't matter if they cheat. I mean, obviously we don't want cheating, right? I'm being sarcastic. People are not voting. Our people are not voting. And they're so worried. They go, oh, we got to get the softies. Oh, we got to get them. We got to, they're appealing to the Democrats who hate us. They're not going to vote for us. And if you're
Yep.
not going to get your own people excited and motivated to even vote by mail, vote or sit on the toilet and vote or whatever, if they're not going to come out and vote, what makes you think a Democrat's going to vote for you? So they keep doing the same bullshit over and over again about not wanting to offend or sound too much, close to Trump, or speak out against porn for your kids, or no, illegals don't belong here. They don't do any of that here, Caleb. None of it.
Yeah, Barry Goldwater said extremism in defense of liberty is no vice. That's what's attractive. Okay, you want to attract people to the Republican Party. You know what attracts people? You know what's exciting? Liberty. Liberty
Doing
is
something.
exciting
Yeah.
for people to live free, to where we don't have to listen to a bunch of government bureaucrats telling us what to do. We can live free. We can go and do what we want to do under principles. That obviously there's some protection for life, liberty, pursuit of happiness, property, things like that. We have that enshrined in our Constitution, but we don't need the rest of us. Like I know I'm probably an extremist over here, but
Yeah,
cut the
right.
government, all government by 90%. Let's go.
Yep.
That's a great start for me, and that would benefit every single person, whether you're a Democrat, a Republican, or a libertarian.
I mean, it's the
But
first
yeah.
time I heard any say they're probably the most extremist on the show here.
Well, I mean, you're right though, because I mean, the time for being passive ended 30 years ago. The left moves the goalposts further down. We always react to them, and we never accomplish anything. That's why people are frustrated. And I think the new conservative party is not going to be what these blue bloods want. They want to be able to keep writing strongly worded letters and fundraise. They don't want to solve problems. We're sick and tired of that. It's time to make some major cuts to government. Like when I see these fraud schemes with Medicare and autism, whatever else, my first thought is, why the hell are we funding this stuff to begin with, to even allow there to be a possibility of fraudulent claims? Why are any of our tax dollars going to any of these programs, period? Whether it's feeding our fam or feeding the future, or it's the homeless industrial complex in California. These all seem like state level problems to take care of to me. I can't find anything in the Constitution that says the federal government is your baby daddy and is going to pay all your bills. So I think we need to go back to that mentality and just start slashing things. We need to get out in front of things the left wants and cut them off before they can do them. They're all behind this 30 by 30, 50 by 50, wanting a third of the land in the U.S. To be reserved and off limits for everybody. And this seems like a minor issue. But, as we just said, we can't do that. And actually, the Federal Reserve holds a lot, or the federal government holds a lot of land in a lot of states that we don't have any business holding anymore. Maybe we should give it to the states with the condition that they sell it, allow for another expansion, let people move out of the cities. But we need to start taking the cards off the table before the left even has a chance to play them. Put them on the defense for once and start actually accomplishing our agenda. This election should have been a walk in the park. The first 3 months of Trump's term were great. I mean, the left was losing their minds with the Tesla terrorism and everything else. Everything Doge was exposing. As we just stayed on that trajectory and actually made some arrests and stayed aggressive. Right now, they'd be polling at 20% in everywhere but Nancy Pelosi's district and the few places in New York. Not to mention half their politicians would probably already be in jail.
They would be. We really need to start exercising our rights, and these are God-given rights. They're not given by government. I
Yes.
love to quiz politicians on the purpose of government because it's so simple. It says it in the Declaration of Independence. It's to secure our rights, our God-given rights. We need to start operating under the 9th and 10th Amendments at the state level and then just as a personal level as well. But we do have to be cautious here. We tend to view these corrupt government officials as inept, right? And they're not. They're
No.
actually pretty clever. Yeah, there's some useful idiots. AOC is not clever. That is a useful idiot. That's a great
Her
example.
handlers are, though.
Her handlers are extremely bright. And these individuals have sold out America. That's what we need to recognize. These individuals do not have America's best interest at heart. No, they are globalists through and through. They are elitists who believe in a system that the Bible actually warned us about, a beast system. They want to make a system that is a one world currency, a one world government, and a one world religion. We know that's going to happen because that's what the Bible tells us is going to happen. And when I look around, I see example after example of them trying to do just that. I mean, for example, why did Trump start talking about Canada as the 51st state and taking Greenland? Why was that? And a lot of the MAGA people were like, yeah, let's do it, right? Why did they do that? Because the Council on Foreign Relations back in 2018 released their 10 regions plan. Now they updated it. Originally, they wanted the North American Union to be Canada, the United States, and Mexico. The updated version is Canada, the United States, and Greenland. The 10 regions, which is literally talked about once again in the Bible, 10 kingdoms, is part of their plan to bring about that beast system, the rise of the Antichrist, and we can't even see it. We think our politicians are inept. No, they're destabilizing our country for a very specific reason.
We don't want Canada anyway. There's too many liberals up there. We'd have to pacify them first. So I guess maybe they can be a territory, and then we can revisit it in, say, 25, 30 years.
Yep. So we have to have you on sometime in the future so we can compare notes on Antifa because we're a hotbed here. You guys are like the epicenter over there, really. But I think there's lots of them, and I would love to compare notes because I'm sure you follow them a little bit, don't you?
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, Portland, Seattle, yeah, that's like home for Antifa. We had the whole Chaz Chop area out there, like the whole zone. So yeah, Antifa is a powerhouse on the West Coast, and they're an enemy, and we need to call them out. And we need to address them. They're enemies of America. But it has been an absolute pleasure to have to be on your guys' show. I would love for the audience to check out my show. You can find that. I'm pretty much everywhere. I'm even back on YouTube. They banned me because I wouldn't shut up about the vaccine, but I'm back on there.
Really? Okay.
And the website is churchandstate.media. If you go there, you're going to get hit with a really annoying pop-up. But if you fill that out, I personally call every single person who fills that out.
Nice.
So be patient with me. Sometimes I'll get a lot of hits, and it takes me a while to do that. But I do call every single person. And then
That's awesome.
once again, on the solutions as well, like here's another one. I work for a company called mark37.com. Go check them out. Ghost phones, ghost laptops as well. Tech that doesn't spy on you. Your iPhone, your Android, they're spying on everything that you're doing. And if you're a warrior, if you're in this fight, I wouldn't recommend giving all of your communications over to the enemy.
Well said.
I'll talk to you offline about that. Maybe we'll try to push that on our show here for you, for you too.
I could set that up. Yeah.
Yeah. Because they're spying. So you got a phone that you won't talk to your wife about something, and then all of a sudden you're gonna hear about it on Facebook. right?
Yeah, I can take my phone and I can say, gosh, a vacation to Hawaii sure sounds great. And you know what's not going to happen on my phone? I'm not going to get all these advertisements for hotels and for flights and rental cars. No,
Creepy,
my
man.
phone doesn't do that. My phone
Yeah.
also it has some cool things. It has a sandbox. I can isolate an app onto my phone to where that app doesn't have access to my phone. So like I got Uber on my phone, but Uber's just a horrible app. But I
Yeah.
travel a lot, so I use it. So it isolates it so it doesn't have any access to my phone. I got a kill switch on this phone. If I ever got stopped, like what happened with Mike Lindell when the FBI grabbed him in the parking lot of Hardee's and they took his phone, I've got a little thing on here I can hit, put in a pin, it nukes my phone.
Nice.
I worked
good
for
tech.
Mike when that happened. We were wondering which of us was going to get grabbed next.
Well,
Yeah.
I wish I could have had that when I was a criminal. That would have been happy. Good. Actually, it was like the big bag phones. It was so long ago. Well, thank you very much, Caleb. Appreciate it. Mike, you want to do your closing statement here?
Oh yeah. And yeah, Caleb, stick around for a second when we after we wrap up the show. I'm going to introduce you to a few people I think would be useful for you. To our audience, thank you guys for being with us here tonight. Please like, share, and subscribe. Help us to grow so we can bring more people the news the mainstream media doesn't want.